The number was 52,300. You watched it become 71,000, and for 11 days you were a different person. You had waited 3 years for this. You rehearsed the ask in the shower, walked into that office with your pulse in your ears, and walked out lighter than you had felt in a decade. You sat in your car afterward, hands still on the wheel, engine off, and you just breathed. Finally. This was the number where the low hum of worry that had followed you for years would finally go quiet. And for 11 days, it did. You checked the account twice, just to see it. You told the 2 people whose faces you wanted to see when you said it. And late one night, you let yourself think the thought you had been afraid to think. I made it out. Then day 12 arrived. And here is the strange part. Nothing arrived with it. The number on the screen was exactly as big as it had been the night before. But the feeling had drained out of it overnight, the way warmth leaves a room you forgot to heat. 71,000 had become the new normal, and the new normal felt, to the exact decimal, like the old one. The same tightening when a bill hit, the same arithmetic at the end of the month. The same thought you have been carrying since you were 19, the one that whispers, I just need a little more, and then I will be okay. Now here is the part almost nobody ever sees, and it is the reason you are still watching. You did not fail. You got the raise. The number genuinely went up. What went up with it, silently, in the dark, was the size of the life that number now had to carry. You did not get poorer. You got used to it. There is a name for what happened to you. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. And once you can really see how it works, you will finally understand the strangest fact about money. Why the raise, the car, the apartment, the whole life you are breaking yourself to build, keeps arriving, and keeps feeling like it was not quite enough. Stay with me, because the way off this treadmill is not the one you think, and I am going to hand it to you before the end. This is Money Mind, and I want to be straight with you right at the top, because it changes how you hear everything that comes after. This is not another finance channel. I am not going to hand you a budget, a stock pick, or 5 clever ways to shave money off your grocery bill. 1,000 people already do that, and do it well. What happens here is quieter, and I think it matters more. We do not really talk about money. We talk about the mind that is holding it. Because the way you feel about your bank account has almost nothing to do with the number sitting in it, and almost everything to do with a set of ancient settings running underneath your thoughts. Settings you never chose, and were never once taught to notice. Today we are going after just one of them. The single setting that quietly eats every gain you will ever make, no matter how large. It ate your raise in 11 days. And here is my promise for the next 15 minutes. By the end, you will know how to reach in and switch it off, on purpose, so that the life you already have can finally start to feel like the life you always wanted. Not a bigger life. This one. If that trade is worth 15 minutes to you, stay with me, because it gets stranger before it gets simpler. Here is what you have been told your whole life, in 100 quiet ways. Earn more, and you will feel safe. Get the raise, buy the house, hit the number, and the worry will finally lie down. Almost every message you have ever absorbed about money points at the same horizon. More. So look, really look, at the people who already crossed that horizon. The ones earning double what you earn. Are they twice as safe? Twice as calm? Do they lie awake with half the worry? You already know they are not. And you know it from yourself, because you have watched the same thing happen in miniature, every time you got something you wanted, and then, weeks later, found yourself quietly wanting the next thing. So here is the uncomfortable floor this whole video is built on. The problem was never the size of the number. The problem is what your mind does to the number once it has it. You adapt. And the instant you get used to it, it stops counting as more, and quietly becomes the new baseline, the flat zero line you measure the next lack against. You are not walking a road toward enough. You are standing on a treadmill. And running faster on a treadmill does not carry you 1 inch forward. It just spins the belt quicker under your feet, so you have to run harder to stay in the exact same place. Which raises an obvious question. If this really is a treadmill, who built it, and why can nobody seem to step off? This is not a motivational idea I dreamed up to sound deep. It is one of the most studied patterns in psychology, and it has a real beginning. In 1971, 2 researchers, Philip Brickman and Campbell, published a paper on what they called hedonic relativism. And in it, they described something quietly devastating. Human beings, they argued, are in a sense running on a treadmill of their own happiness. Something good happens, we rise, we feel the lift, and then we adapt and we slide right back down to roughly where we started, no matter how good the good thing was. They gave the trap its name. But naming a thing is not proving it. So a few years later, in 1978, 3 psychologists, Brickman, Coates, and Janoff-Bullman, tested the idea in about the most dramatic way a person can. They found people who had recently won large sums in the lottery, and a second group, people who had recently been in accidents that left them paralyzed. 2 sets of lives thrown as far apart as 2 lives can go. Then they simply measured how happy each group actually was. You can already feel the ending coming, because you have lived a smaller version of it. About a year later, the lottery winners were barely happier than ordinary people who had won nothing. But here is the detail that should stop you cold. The winners reported taking less pleasure from the ordinary, everyday things than everyone else did. The morning coffee, an easy conversation, a quiet evening at home. After the enormous high of winning, normal life had faded to gray by comparison. They got the one thing nearly everyone on earth is chasing, and it reached back and dimmed the small joys they already had. That is the treadmill showing its real face. It does not merely fail to lift you. It turns down the volume on the life you already own. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it running through your own days. So let me define it cleanly, then say it a second way you will not be able to unhear. The formal name is hedonic adaptation. Your mind treats anything that stays constant as background and stops responding to it. A new thing gives you a spike of feeling. Then, as it becomes familiar, the spike fades, and your baseline quietly resets around it, as though it had always been there. That is the textbook version. Now here is that same machinery in a form you have physically lived. Walk into a house where someone is cooking. For the first few seconds, the smell is the whole world, and then, inside a minute or two, it is gone. You cannot smell it at all. The smell did not leave the room. Your brain simply decided it was no longer new information and stopped bothering to report it to you. That is the whole trick. And your brain does that with the smell in a kitchen. And it does the identical thing with your salary, with your car, with the apartment you once stood in the middle of, keys in hand, barely believing it was yours. With the phone that felt like a small piece of the future for 1 week, and then became the dull rectangle you barely glance at. So here is the sentence I want lodged in your head. Your mind is not built to keep you happy with what you have. It is built to notice what changed, and then go silent. Precisely so it is free to notice the next thing that changes. You do not carry a happiness meter around inside you. You carry a change detector. And a change detector, by its very design, can never be satisfied. Satisfaction is the one state it is built to erase. Which means the obvious solution, just get more, is walking you straight into the trap. But hold on, because right now a part of you is pushing back, and that part is not wrong. You are thinking, that is a nice theory, but my raise would actually help me. My money problems are real. I am chasing rent, not a feeling. And you are right, about the first part, completely. More money genuinely does lift you, especially when you are hauling yourself out of real scarcity, the version of broke that keeps you awake at night. The raise is not a lie. The lift is not a lie. But watch what happens in the weeks right after the lift, because this is exactly where the treadmill hides. The moment your income rises, your life quietly rises to meet it. And you do not decide this. It happens on its own, one small upgrade at a time. The groceries get a little nicer, and then that is just how you shop. The old car starts to feel embarrassing in the work parking lot, so it gets replaced. The apartment that felt like a win last year suddenly feels cramped, so you move somewhere that costs more, and that becomes normal by the 3rd month. Within a single year, your new, higher life costs almost exactly as much of you as your old one did. The same tightness, the same knot in the chest, the same end-of-month arithmetic. All of it walks back through the door, only now wearing a more expensive outfit. You climbed. You genuinely climbed. But the belt climbed right along with you, and you are standing in the same spot, only now breathing harder to hold it. And once you know to look for this pattern, you find it everywhere. Let me show you. Once you can see this, you cannot stop seeing it. And it always moves in the same 3 steps. It arrives loud. It goes quiet. You reach for the next one. Loud, quiet, next. The phone. The day it arrived, you noticed everything. The weight of it, the glass, the tiny sounds it made. Loud. 2 weeks later, invisible, just a tool in your hand. 6 months later, you were lying in bed watching a video about the newer one. The car. For a month, you took the long way home just to stay in the seat a little longer. Loud. Then it became the thing that gets you to work, that needs gas, that has a scratch on the door you have genuinely stopped seeing. Quiet. And some part of you has already started clocking the nicer ones pulling up next to you at the lights. The salary. You know that story now. Loud for 11 days. Then just a number that vanishes into a life that expanded to swallow it whole. And it does not stop at the things you buy. The apartment. The relationship milestone you waited years for. The vacation you saved 12 months for. Pure magic on the first morning, background noise by the fourth. Every one of them runs the same program. Loud. Quiet. Next. And here is the true cost, once you add it up across a whole life. You are not actually chasing phones and cars and numbers. You are chasing the loud. That first bright spike of feeling, again and again, paying more for it each time, to buy a hit that gets a little shorter each time. And it gets worse than that, which is the part almost nobody is willing to say out loud. Because the treadmill does something crueler than simply flattening out your new things. It reaches backward, and it steals your old ones too. Remember the lottery winners, the ones who could no longer taste their own morning coffee. That was not some side effect of winning millions. That is happening to you, right now, quietly, one small adaptation at a time. Every time you sprint toward the next bigger thing, you raise the bar for what even counts as good. And everything that now sits below that bar goes gray. The home-cooked meal on a plate you already own. The ordinary Tuesday where nothing went wrong. The friend who calls just to hear your voice. The body that gets you up the stairs without a thought. The roof that holds through the rain. All of it, quietly reclassified as not enough. Not because it changed, but because your attention is somewhere up ahead, fixed on the next rung. So picture the true destination of a life spent running flat out on this belt. You get everything. The number, the car, the house, the whole list you swore you needed. And you stand there, inside the exact dream you chased for 20 years, and you feel less than you felt back when you had almost nothing, and every small thing was still new. That is the real trap at the dead center of the modern money story. It is not that you will never get more, you probably will. It is that getting more, chased this way, can slowly cost you the very ability to feel the things you get. You can win the entire race, cross the line first, arms up, and discover you have lost the one thing the race was ever supposed to buy you. So the question that has been building this whole time is finally the only one that matters. How do you get off? Because you cannot just delete the machine. Here is the answer. You cannot delete a setting that kept your ancestors alive for 100,000 years. But you can learn to work against it, on purpose, with 3 specific moves. Think of them as the 3 ways you take your own weight off the belt. Space it. Notice it. Name your enough. Move 1. Space it. Here is why it works. Adaptation feeds on constant access. Anything you have all the time, your brain files under normal and stops feeling. So you do the exact opposite of what every advertisement begs you to do. Instead of having your favorite thing every day until it goes silent, you put distance around it on purpose. The coffee you drink on autopilot every single morning barely registers. That same coffee, made slowly on a Sunday because you decided to make yourself wait for it, comes roaring back to life. Scarcity is the signal your brain uses to decide something matters. So hand it a little scarcity, deliberately. Move 2. Notice it. And this is a different move than spacing. Spacing changes how often you have something. Noticing changes how hard you look at what is already in front of you. Here is why it works. Your change detector only reports things that feel like they could disappear. So once a week, take one thing you already own and have completely stopped seeing, and for 60 seconds, imagine it gone. Your home, your health, the person asleep in the next room. Not vaguely, actually picture the loss. It sounds morbid, I know. But the thing snaps back into sharp focus, loud again, because you just reminded your change detector that none of it is permanent, that all of it is on loan. Joy does not live inside owning things. It lives in the act of paying attention to them. And attention is the one currency you can always choose to spend, no matter what your balance says. Move 3. Name your enough. This is the one that breaks the treadmill at the root, because the other two slow the belt, but this one nails the finish line to the floor. Here is why it works. When enough is vague, your idea of it drifts upward on its own, silently, every time your income does, and you never notice it move. So before your next upgrade, before the next raise or car or move, you stop and you write it down. You define, in advance, in plain words, what enough actually looks like. Enough for now is this apartment, and this much in savings, and one good dinner out a week. When enough is a number you named on purpose, your aspiration cannot quietly drift up behind your back and slide the finish line away while you are busy running toward it. You put the line down in ink, so the belt can no longer keep dragging it out of reach. Now let me show you all three in one ordinary evening, so this does not stay a theory. It is Sunday. The raise cleared on Friday. The old you would already be 3 browser tabs deep, shopping for the upgrade, reaching for the loud. Instead, tonight, you do this. You make the good coffee, and you actually drink it, the whole cup, no phone, tasting it. That is noticing. You decide the upgrade can wait 30 days, not because the money is not there, but so it stays a real choice instead of a reflex. That is spacing. And before bed, you write one line on an index card and leave it on the counter. Enough for now is this, plus the number I am saving toward. That is naming your enough. 10 minutes, total. And in those 10 minutes, you did the thing almost no one on earth manages to do. You let a good thing stay good. Now hear this next part slowly, because if you walk away with the wrong lesson tonight, it will quietly hurt you. None of this means you are shallow. None of it means you are ungrateful, or broken, or bad with money, or somehow less deep than the people who claim they never want anything at all. The treadmill is not a flaw in your character. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is your factory settings. You were shipped with it. That change detector, the one that goes silent on everything you own, is the same machinery that kept your ancestors alive out there in the cold. The ones who felt permanently satisfied, who leaned back and said this is plenty, did not tend to make it. The ones who always felt a pull toward more, an itch to reinforce the shelter, store more food, climb a little higher up the ridge, those are the ones who survived long enough to become your great to the 10th grandparent. You are the descendant of the restless ones. That restlessness is not your enemy. It built the room you are sitting in and the light you are reading this by. But here is the catch. It was engineered for a world of real, physical scarcity, and you are now running it at full volume inside a world carefully built to sell you the next loud thing every 3 seconds. The setting is not wrong. It is just aimed at a target that will never fill it. And that is the good news hiding inside all of this. Because a setting, unlike a flaw, can be overridden the moment you can finally see it running, which, right now, you can. Which brings us all the way back to a parking lot, and a car, and 11 days. Back to that car, that first day, that new number, 52,300 became 71,000, and for 11 days you flew. And then, on day 12, you landed in your own kitchen, exactly where you started, quietly wondering what on earth was wrong with you. Well, now you know. Nothing was wrong with you. You were standing on a belt that speeds up the second you do. You never needed a bigger number. You needed to feel the number you already have. And that, unlike the raise, is something you can start doing tonight without earning a single dollar more. So hold on to the line, because it is the whole video in one breath. You didn't get richer. You got a faster treadmill. And the way off a treadmill was never to run harder. It was to name the place you were trying to reach, so you could finally lift your eyes and notice you were already standing somewhere worth being. Enough is not a number you reach. It is a number you name. Here is your one small job this week. Do not try to do all 3 moves. Just pick one thing you already own and have completely stopped seeing. The roof, the person, the coffee, the working body that carries you around all day without ever sending a bill. And for 1 full minute, give it your real attention, as if it were brand new in your hands, or as if you were about to lose it by morning. That is all. 60 seconds. That is you, reaching down and slowing the belt with your own hand for the first time. And once you have felt how much was already sitting there, quietly, inside a life you had stopped looking at, one last question opens up under your feet, and it is a strange one. Because if the treadmill is real, then why is the next thing we reach for, to feel something again, so often a thing we secretly hope other people will see us have? Why do we spend so much of ourselves to be seen, by an audience that turns out to barely be watching at all? That question has a genuinely unsettling answer, and that is exactly where the next video begins. Subscribe, and I will meet you there.